So thank you for coming. And while we're talking, you're going to see images on the screen that are just some of the contributions that children have produced working with Peta over the years. And actually, it's not actually been over the years, has it? Just tell us, first of all, a little bit about the context for this program.
So the program began as kind of a pilot program I was invited to do in 2012, I believe it was. And I was in 3 schools in Surrey, and at the time they weren't quite sure what was happening with these kids. These kids were really quiet in the classrooms, the refugee kids. They just wanted to get a sense using some other modality, and it was Pat Torstead, who was the associate superintendent at the time in Surrey. And she was excited. She had seen evidence of art therapy working, so she invited me to go into the schools and work with the kids and just see what came up. And it was just remarkable, offering expressive arts, offering visual art, some movement activities, working with drama, that these kids just began to tell all these stories of their experiences, of how their lives had been, of how the move to Canada was for them. And these were stories they had never, ever shared in the context of a school. So there they were, having this experience of being able, for the first time for many of them, to be able to look at some of these stories and have someone witness them, and then also have the school see them. Because what we did in the unfolding of all these stories, we all got excited, the kids and I, and we decided to put together a book. And the kids were completely in charge. They decided the title of the book. They each dedicated the book to someone special in their lives. They each had a chapter, and they told their stories and put their artwork and their drawings. And this book we put together, we bound, and it was in the school library and in Surrey Public Library.
What is the book called?
We have 2 books now. So the one is, wow, I forgot the title
It's okay,
of that.
you can think about it. We'll get back to it.
Yeah, We Are Here Now is the second book that we
Okay.
put together. And that was part of a myth-busting project, which was a project through Immigration Services Society, where we got the kids again, through art and through expressive arts, to tell some of their stories. And that's where that story, the video you just showed, that's where that came from. Was telling the story as the artwork unfolded, and we put it together again in book form, and that's called We Are Here Now.
So I'm hearing in what you're describing a community that joins forces. So it wasn't just the school district, it wasn't just you, a therapist. So I'm thinking about what we've been learning over the last day about resiliency and how important it is that those services around children really ask children what's going to work for you and then come together around that. So you saw that happening.
Absolutely. Yes, it was generated by the kids, and also because they come from different cultures on the whole. They come from different cultures from us. And we are so informed by our own culture, our treatment modalities, our ideas about healing are so informed by our own cultures. And there, through the arts, the kids were showing us what they needed, what they wanted, where they were hurting, and what it meant to belong, what it meant to be seen.
Well, what's your understanding about that? What is it about doing art that allows children to tell their stories? And we've seen the rap, Trevor, with his students, that there's something about that as an expression. But what is it about the physical art that you think unlocks that for children?
A lot of these children haven't had opportunities to tell their stories, and a lot of the stories are experienced as experiences, but they're also embodied. So they hold these stories in many different ways inside themselves. And the art is just the natural language. Imagination is the natural communication for children to express what's on their heart, to express what is moving them, what is hurting them, what is holding them back. So the art provides also a little bit of distance, because these children won't naturally sit down and talk about experiences they've had. They've had really difficult experience. They've seen people they love dearly be killed in front of them. They've experienced being removed from their homes and their families in the middle of the night, knowing that they will never see them again. So the art gives them that space and that distance, and they're in charge of the process. They are creating and they are forming, and through the process they are understanding, and meaning is very important with trauma. What does this mean to them, and how are they going to integrate this into their experience and who they are?
And you're saying that doesn't always come with words. It comes with...
It does not always come with words, particularly with trauma, because trauma is encoded in very different ways in our brains, in our bodies.
I'm just going to ask Pippa, are we able to put up the pictures, Pippa, while we're having this conversation? Great, thank you. So just to see some, so you can feel and experience some of the art that we're talking about here. What do you see happening to the children then when they do have that opportunity to express in some way what they've experienced?
First of all, what I see is an aliveness coming back to them. So there's a kind of a joy. It's painful too, but there is a kind of joy in that discovery and in that being able to tell what it is they've experienced. There's definitely a sense of belonging that happens. We do this in small groups as well. So we're in 13 schools in Surrey through community schools. So 13 different schools. In small groups, these kids have the opportunity sharing experiences and commonalities.
Is that what you mean by belonging? Because now we're talking resiliency language, right? So you're
Absolutely.
Linking this to resiliency, I think.
Absolutely. Yes, it is the basis of resilience. That sense of being connected to their own humanity and to other people. And these kids get to hear experiences of the other children, and sometimes it's really funny and sometimes it's amazing to them across countries. I think I mentioned to you when we chatted, the one girl was from Ghana. She was a refugee from Africa, and another one was from a camp in Thailand. Her family was Burmese, and they had escaped, and she had been brought up her entire life in a camp. And they shared an experience of one day in both of their different experiences. Someone had brought in a generator to show a movie. And it was just phenomenal. The community had never seen a screen before, and they'd never seen all this thing. And they shared this common experiences across continents of
seeing a movie for the first time. What was that like for them?
It was the joy in their faces of just that moment of sharing. And also the flushing toilets. The first time they encountered a flushing toilet. The one was in the airport, the young girl from Thailand, and she didn't know what to do. So she went to the sink, she had a cup, and she kept trying to fill the toilet. But they both had a similar experience of the flushing toilet. So for them, that sense of connection was really important, and then they feel rooted and connected in the school too.
I think a lot of us who don't work in the field you're in are afraid of that, of unleashing that trauma, because we don't know what to do with it once it's opened up. So what do you say to educators about what they can do, what we can do to help children express themselves in this way that's so healing?
I think the art can hold a lot, and if it's in the hands of the children, they are very good at monitoring what can come out and what can't come out, and the art can hold it. So it's never a forcing, it's never tell us of a terrible experience or a bad emotion, or it's just allowing the arts, the more spontaneous, the more they just allowed to use the arts in their own terms, then what needs to come up will come up. And then allowing them to talk about it again in their own terms. What does this mean? Or what is this about for you?
And you've created resources for teachers.
Yes.
So that's good. And probably, certainly on our website, we'll share that. But how would you recommend people find that?
The resource, it's on the Surrey School Board district. Okay. There's a link to it, but there's also Immigration Service Society. Part of that myth-busting project was writing the resource and it's called Resource Guide.
And as much as the stories are about trauma, what you've told me is it also surfaces their memories of what is strong about their culture, what is strong about their lives.
Yes, definitely. And talking about resilience too, I'm blown away by these children again and again. I've been doing this for a while, and we have various facilitators in the schools, and we all come back sharing just how incredible these kids are, their connection to family, and how we found a real strong commonality, even kids from very different areas and regions, that they all share this connection, strong connection to family, a very strong connection to their identity, who they are and where they come from. And they talk about the land a lot with so much love. And they spent so much time outside, these kids. So they talk about the kids that grew up in Thailand, the forest. And they talk about the Syrian kids, the Iraqi kids, just the earth and the color of it and the smell and all these pieces as well. And they're very connected to what's happening in their countries. And a lot of them actually speak about going back and making a difference.
Yeah. Well, just think about, to remember that and not just to see those children, as I explained earlier, and see them as trauma and see them as loss, but to also see them as rich and full of all kinds of joy, full of memories and experiences. There are a couple of specific pictures as we're closing here that you wanted to tell a few stories. The first one is Spider-Man.
That's a young, she was 10 at the time when she came to Canada. So she's one of those kids who had to leave in the middle of the night. They found out that they could come to Canada, so they came to pick them up, and she had to say goodbye to these relatives she had lived in a house with her entire life. But as she was leaving, she grabbed these Spider-Man pants, which someone had given her. She had because she knew she was coming to North America. And she was so excited that she could put on something that's kind of American in her mind. So her very first day of school, she came to school wearing her Spider-Man pants and with an incredible sense of pride and belonging, and now this was going to be her new home. So she drew this drawing, and she spoke about wearing her Spider-Man pants, but the kids kind of laughed and snickered because, it was
Spider-Man pants.
It was Spider-Man pants. But she talks about what she understood through this experience, and she did a lot of this, of just drawing various different experiences. She spoke about how she realized that she had no idea in the beginning of how incredibly different this is all going to be.
Yes. But she was able to laugh about it as well.
She absolutely was.
That's very cool. And then the final one is a tree, a beautiful tree.
Yeah. And this is just a wonderful woman. She came from, well, she's a woman now. She graduated high school. She came from Syria. And when she first came, there were so many secrets. There were so many experiences that she had been through she couldn't speak about, and she would just paint them almost in code. So there were little things that would remind her of various experiences. And over time, she was able to unpack those pieces a little bit more and more and more. And then she just started to paint everything. It was stories of her life and her longing and her connection to religion, her connection to everything she wanted to become. And this is actually a painting she did. We brought her back. Once she graduated, she came back to help with an expressive art group and help with Arabic. And she painted this, which was so different to her earlier drawings. And she said this is how she sees herself now, with very strong roots to her culture, her religion, a trunk that is full of these experiences and these branches that will just continue to grow.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. Thank you so much for helping to open the door to this new country and to the inner world of these children, and for sharing it with us. Please join me in thanking Peta.
Thank you. Thanks,